Some mountains have never been climbed because the terrain makes it impossible, others because the weather makes it lethal. But the mountains in this video are different. These are peaks you can see clearly from space, right now, on any screen, that remain unreached for reasons that go far deeper than weather or rock. We begin with the one the entire world agreed must stay untouched, Mount Kailash, Tibet. In the high-altitude desert of western Tibet, rising from a plateau that sits over 4,500 meters above sea level, Mount Kailash stands at 6,638 meters. From Google Earth, its profile is unmistakable. A near-perfect black pyramid, its four faces oriented to the cardinal points, its summit permanently snow-capped, its geometry so precise that photographs of it are routinely questioned as edited. No one has ever stood on its summit, and the world has formally agreed that no one should. Kailash is held sacred by four distinct religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the Bon faith, a reach that spans billions of people across multiple continents. In Hindu tradition, it is the home of Lord Shiva, the axis around which the universe turns and time itself is measured. In Buddhist cosmology, it is Mount Meru, the center of all existence, the point from which reality radiates outward in every direction. In Jainism, it is the site where the first Tirthankara attained liberation. In the Bon tradition, which predates Buddhism in Tibet, it is the seat of all spiritual power in the world. To climb Kailash would not be an achievement recognized by any of these traditions. It would be desecration. The Chinese government, which controls access to the Tibetan plateau, has formally banned all climbing on the mountain. That ban followed an international outcry in 2001, when a Spanish mountaineering team applied for a permit. The response, from religious communities, governments, and individuals across Asia and beyond, was immediate and overwhelming. The permit was not granted. The ban was formalized. Even before the official prohibition, the mountain's reputation made serious attempts almost unthinkable. The mountaineer Reinhold Messner, a man who has summited Everest without supplemental oxygen, completed the hardest routes on the hardest peaks in the world, and pushed the limits of what human beings can do at altitude, was offered permission to attempt Kailash in the 1980s. He turned it down. His explanation was precise. If we conquer this mountain, then we conquer something in people's souls. Instead of climbers, Kailash draws pilgrims, hundreds of thousands of them, every year from across the world. They come to walk the Cerro, the 52-kilometer circuit around the mountain's base, one of the most significant spiritual journeys in human history. Some complete it in a single day as an act of extreme devotion. Others take weeks, a full prostration circuit where the pilgrim lies flat on the ground at every step, can take several weeks more. The mountain is walked around, honored, approached, never ascended. Ancient Buddhist texts describe the sage Milarepa as the only being ever to have reached Kailash's summit, and his ascent, the texts are careful to note, was not physical, it was metaphysical. He flew to the top as a demonstration of spiritual mastery. The implication is clear. The summit of Kailash is not a place the human body was designed to reach. Its coordinates are public. Its altitude is within the technical range of modern mountaineering. On Google Earth, you can zoom in until the pyramid fills your screen, study its faces, and trace the ridgelines that lead to a summit no camera has ever recorded from above. And it will stay that way, not because we cannot reach it, but because we agreed not to. Cerro el Cono, Peru. From a mountain protected by billions of believers, we travel to one protected by something more immediate. Deep in the Peruvian Amazon, where the jungle canopy stretches unbroken for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, one thing breaks the pattern. A perfect pyramid. Rising alone from the flat forest floor, its four sides angled with a symmetry so precise it looks engineered. This is Cerro el Cono, the cone, and no one has ever reached its summit. At roughly 700 meters tall, height is not what makes it significant. It's the shape, the isolation, and what surrounds it. Geologists have suggested it could be an extinct volcano or an unusual rock formation thrust upward by ancient tectonic forces. But no field study has ever confirmed either theory, because getting close enough to find out is, for all practical purposes, impossible. The land around Cerro el Cono is home to some of the last uncontacted peoples on Earth. Groups including the Isconahua and the Mashco-Piro have inhabited this territory for generations, and they have made their position clear in every encounter recorded. Outsiders are not welcome. Approaches have been met with immediate hostility, arrows, retreat, and the kind of message that doesn't require a shared language to understand. The Peruvian government has enforced an exclusion zone around the wider region. Entering it without authorization carries serious legal consequences, on top of the physical ones. But there is something deeper here than law or danger. To the communities who live in this forest, Cerro el Cono is not a geological curiosity. It is sacred, a living presence they call an Apu, a mountain spirit with power over the land, the weather, and the people who live beneath it. The mountain is not an object to be studied or a summit to be conquered. It is something to be protected, and the communities around it have spent centuries doing exactly that. The pyramid's perfect shape has, predictably, attracted online theories about lost civilizations and ancient construction. Those theories say more about our need to explain away mystery than they do about the mountain itself. The reality is more compelling. A geometric peak rising from one of the most biodiverse and least explored regions on Earth. Its origin unconfirmed, its slopes untouched, its secrets intact. It sits there, perfectly visible from space, in a territory that has quietly and effectively resisted the modern world for as long as anyone can remember. Mount Paektu, North Korea. Not every barrier is physical. Straddling the border between China and North Korea, Mount Paektu is one of the most politically charged pieces of geography on the planet. From Google Earth, you can trace the international borderline cutting directly through Heaven Lake, the vast, deep caldera at the mountain summit, its still blue water sitting at over 2,000 meters above sea level. The Chinese side is a developed tourist attraction. Cable cars, viewing platforms, visitor centers. Thousands of people arrive each year to look out over the caldera from designated viewpoints, take photographs, and leave. The North Korean side is a different world in every sense of the phrase. For most outsiders, it is simply forbidden. For the small number allowed access, a figure that changes based on the political climate and the regime's calculations about what outside contact serves its interests, the experience is tightly managed from start to finish. A chartered domestic flight from Pyongyang, a guided ascent along a specific approved route. Every element of the visit controlled and framed. Because on the North Korean side, Mount Paektu is not a natural wonder. It is a founding myth made physical. State doctrine holds that Kim Il-sung conducted his anti-Japanese guerrilla campaign from secret camps hidden in the forests on Paektu's slopes. The regime also maintains that his son Kim Jong-il was not born in the Soviet Union, as documented records suggest, but on the sacred slopes of the mountain itself during his father's resistance campaign. A visit to Paektu is a mandatory part of North Korean civic education. Every citizen is expected to understand its significance. For many, it is the most politically loaded place in the country. Beneath the ideology, something else is happening that neither government involved discusses openly. Mount Paektu is an active volcano. Its eruption in 946 AD, known as the Millennium Eruption, was one of the largest in recorded history, ejecting enough material into the atmosphere to affect climate patterns across the northern hemisphere. Its last confirmed eruption was in 1903. But seismic monitoring has detected ongoing unrest beneath the mountain in recent decades, and volcanologists studying it remotely have raised concerns about what a future eruption could mean for the densely populated regions surrounding it. A mountain wrapped in political mythology, sitting on top of a system that may not be finished. Mount Lico, Mozambique. From a mountain locked inside a closed state, we moved to one that was locked inside something else entirely. A ring of cliffs so sheer that the world above them remained completely sealed until 2018. In 2012, conservation biologist Julian Bayliss was scanning Google Earth for undocumented forests in northern Mozambique. A country still being remapped after decades of civil war had made fieldwork impossible across vast areas. And then he stopped scrolling. On his screen, a solitary mountain rising sharply from the surrounding plains, its summit ringed entirely by sheer vertical cliffs that dropped hundreds of meters on every side. And inside those cliffs, sealed, protected, completely cut off from below, a circle of dense, undisturbed rainforest. This was Mount Lico, and no one had ever been inside. Drone surveys confirmed what the satellite images suggested. The plateau above the cliffs was pristine, closed canopy, no clearings, no paths, no sign of human activity of any kind. Even the communities living at the mountain's base, people who had looked up at those cliffs their entire lives, had no tradition of climbing to the top. The walls were simply too sheer, the summit too sealed. It took Bayliss 6 years to secure the funding, permissions, and personnel to mount a proper expedition. The team that finally made the attempt in May 2018 included world-class rock climbers, because without ropes and technical gear, the 125-meter cliff face was not a difficult climb. It was an impossible one. What they found when they crested the top was a biological time capsule, a forest untouched by human interference, its floor open and soft in the way that only happens when a canopy has been left completely undisturbed for a very long time. New species were identified within days. A previously unknown butterfly, potentially new fish, new snake species, animals that had evolved in total isolation on a platform of rock above the plains of Mozambique and had never encountered a human being. And then, near a stream in the interior of the plateau, something that didn't fit the narrative. Ancient clay pots. Someone had been here before. How they scaled those cliffs, and when, is unknown. There are no climbing records, no oral histories that specifically reference the summit. Local communities believe the pots were left as offerings during a forgotten drought, carried up by people whose technique died with them. But that explanation is speculation. The pots remain. The question remains. Mount Lico gave science a lost world, and in the same week it was first explored, it left behind a mystery that exploration couldn't resolve. Belukha Mountain, Russia. Some barriers cannot be measured in meters or mapped on a terrain chart. In the Altai Mountains, at the point where Russia, Kazakhstan, China, and Mongolia converge in a tangle of high ridgelines and ancient valleys, stands Belukha, the highest peak in Siberia, a twin-peaked massif of glaciated rock rising to over 4,500 meters. It has been climbed. The first recorded ascent was in 1914. In technical terms, it is within the range of experienced mountaineers, and yet it is consistently described as one of the most unsettling mountains on Earth. The Altai people who have lived in its shadow for centuries treat Belukha as sacred ground, not in the general sense in which many mountains carry spiritual associations, but with a specificity that affects how people behave around it. The mountain is believed to possess an active spiritual energy, something that can affect those who enter its proximity without the proper intention or respect. Locals speak of this not as tradition or metaphor, but as practical knowledge passed through generations. Those accounts would be easy to dismiss if they were not echoed so consistently by outsiders. Climbers returning from Belukha's slopes have described experiences that don't fit standard expedition reports. A disorienting quality to the light, vivid and disturbing dreams, a sense of being observed that doesn't ease with altitude or exposure. Some have reported sudden, powerful feelings of dread at specific points on the mountain, not linked to any objective danger, just present, inexplicable, and persistent. Whether those experiences reflect something physical in the environment, something psychological in the context of approaching a place with a powerful reputation, or something else entirely, is a question that remains genuinely open. For followers of certain traditions of esoteric Buddhism, Belukha is not simply a sacred peak. It is the entrance to Shambhala, a hidden realm of advanced knowledge that exists beyond ordinary geography. The Russian artist and explorer Nicholas Roerich spent years traveling through the Altai in the early 20th century, convinced that Belukha marked the physical threshold of this realm. He documented his experiences in paintings and journals that are still studied today. Pilgrims continue to travel to Belukha's base, not to climb, but to sit, to meditate, to approach without ambition, and leave without taking anything except what the mountain chose to show them. The summit has been reached. The mountain, by most accounts, has not. Emi Koussi, Chad. Some mountains are unreachable not because of what surrounds them, but because of what doesn't. In the central Sahara, in the far north of Chad, the Tibesti Mountains rise from one of the most hostile and least inhabited landscapes on Earth. There are no cities nearby, no roads within hundreds of kilometers, no infrastructure that could support a serious expedition without months of preparation. At the heart of this range stands Emi Koussi, the highest mountain in the entire Sahara Desert, and one of the most isolated large volcanoes on the planet. From orbit, it is unmissable. A massive shield volcano 60 kilometers wide, its summit caldera stretching 15 kilometers across, so large it generates its own localized weather systems. Astronauts have described it as one of the most recognizable landmarks visible from space with the naked eye. Its sheer scale makes it look accessible, the way a mountain always looks more approachable from above than from the ground. On the ground, the reality is different in every way. The nearest paved road is over 350 kilometers away. The terrain between that road and the mountain's base is hyper-arid desert with no shade, no water sources, and temperatures that swing from scorching heat during the day to well below freezing at night. The Tibesti region has experienced decades of political instability, rebel activity, cross-border tensions, and the near-total absence of any governmental infrastructure, which makes organized expeditions not just logistically difficult, but genuinely dangerous. The few accounts that exist from people who have reached Emi Koussi describe a landscape of surreal emptiness, vast ancient lava fields, untouched and uncharted. The summit caldera, so wide you can lose sight of its far edge in haze. A smaller inner crater containing deposits of natron, a salt mixture used in ancient practices across the continent, sitting in a place almost no one has ever visited. Most of what science knows about Emi Koussi comes not from fieldwork, but from remote sensing. Satellites studying its geology from orbit because researchers cannot safely study it from the ground. Its volcanic history, its internal structure, the full extent of its lava fields, all of it is still being assembled from images taken hundreds of kilometers above the surface. It is a mountain protected by nothing except distance, and in the central Sahara, distance is one of the most absolute barriers on Earth. Mount Mabu, Mozambique. Mount Lico was not the first lost world found by Julian Bayliss from a computer screen in Mozambique. It was the second. 7 years earlier, in 2005, Bayliss was conducting the same kind of satellite survey when he noticed something that didn't appear on any biological map of the region. A vast expanse of deep green forest, dense and unbroken, sitting at altitude in northern Mozambique, with no scientific record attached to it, no expedition notes, no species surveys, no indication that anyone from the outside world had ever set foot inside it. It became known informally as the Google Forest. Its real name is Mount Mabu. In 2008, Bayliss led a joint expedition with the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew to find out if the forest was as intact as it appeared from orbit. What they found exceeded every expectation. Mount Mabu turned out to be the largest mid-altitude rainforest in southern Africa, over 7,000 hectares of primary forest that had never been biologically surveyed. Unlike Mount Lico, Mabu had no sheer cliffs sealing it off. Its inaccessibility came from a different kind of barrier. The region had been a conflict zone during Mozambique's long civil war, which ended in 1992. For nearly 2 decades, the combination of landmines, armed factions, and collapsed infrastructure had made the area effectively unreachable for outside researchers. And that enforced absence had, by accident, preserved something remarkable. The first scientific expeditions returned with findings that reshaped understanding of the region's biodiversity. Mabu's forest had become an evolutionary pocket, isolated long enough for species to develop that existed nowhere else. A new species of pygmy chameleon, a previously undocumented bush viper, rare birds, blue duiker antelope, samango monkeys, an entire ecosystem that had been quietly doing its own thing while the world around it burned. The discovery of Mount Mabu was a reminder that the blank spaces on biological maps don't always represent places no one has looked. Sometimes they represent places no one could safely reach. And sometimes, the thing that made them dangerous is the same thing that kept them intact. Being found, however, brought its own risks. Illegal logging operations moved toward the forest within years of its discovery. The Mozambican government, pushed by conservation groups, began the process of designating the area as protected. Whether that protection holds is an ongoing question. Mount Siple, Antarctica. There are mountains no one has climbed because the attempt would likely kill you. And then there are mountains no one has climbed simply because almost no one has ever tried. Because the idea of trying has barely occurred to anyone. Mount Siple is the second kind. On Google Earth, it appears as a smooth, clean white cone on a remote island off the coast of Antarctica. Vast, unmarked, featureless in a way that is hard to look away from. It rises over 3,100 meters from the frozen sea, a potentially active shield volcano sitting in Marie Byrd Land, one of the largest unclaimed territories on the planet, with no permanent research stations, no infrastructure, and no reason for most people to ever go there. There are no records of a successful summit. There are barely any records of serious attempts. The logistics are close to prohibitive. Reaching the island requires a sea journey through some of the most dangerous waters on Earth, through pack ice that can close and trap vessels with little warning. Once ashore, any approach to the summit means crossing heavily crevassed glaciers in the path of Antarctic storms that arrive without reliable forecast. If something goes wrong at altitude on Mount Siple, there is no rescue. There is no one to call. The nearest permanent human presence is hundreds of kilometers away. Its summit caldera is buried under permanent ice. The mountain is considered potentially active, its smooth, uneroded cone suggesting it has erupted within the last 10,000 years. But what lies beneath that ice cap is genuinely unknown. No instrument has ever been placed on its upper slopes. No rock sample has ever been taken from its summit. What makes Mount Siple quietly unsettling is not its danger or its scale, it's the absence of any story attached to it. Most unclimbed peaks have a history of attempts, expeditions that turned back, climbers who came close, moments that entered mountaineering legend. Siple has none of that. It exists in a part of the world so remote that curiosity itself hasn't fully reached it. When you look at its summit on a satellite image, you see a smooth white dome with no sign that a human being has ever stood there. No footprints, no flags, no evidence of any kind. Just the mountain and the silence around it. And in a world that has mapped almost everything, that silence is the most unsettling thing of all. From the sacred pyramid of Tibet to the forgotten cone at the bottom of the world, from a mountain that an entire civilization has agreed must never be touched, to a volcano so remote that the question of touching it has barely been asked. Every mountain in this video is visible right now from any device with an internet connection. Their coordinates are public, their summits are photographed from orbit, and every one of them, in a different way, pushes back. Some with spiritual prohibitions, that have outlasted every empire that ever tried to cross the land surrounding them. Some with armed exclusion zones and governments that treat geography as ideology. Some with cliffs so sheer that the world above them remained sealed until a rock climbing team arrived with ropes in 2018 and still came back with questions they couldn't answer. Some with a remoteness so absolute that the satellite record is the only record we have. And some with something harder to name, an energy, a presence, a quality that experienced climbers return from and struggle to describe in language that doesn't sound like something else entirely. The satellite sees everything, but seeing is not the same as knowing, and knowing is not the same as being permitted. There is a version of the world in which every mountain has been climbed, every forest surveyed, every caldera sampled. We are not living in that version. These mountains are the proof. They will still be there tomorrow, still visible on your screen, still unreached. If you want to keep traveling to the places the world was never meant to show you, subscribe to Earth Unseen, and tell me in the comments, which of these mountains felt the most untouchable, and why?